Hello, and welcome to Conversations from the World of Allergy, a podcast produced by the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. I'm your host, Dave Stukas. I'm a board-certified allergist and immunologist and serve as the social media medical editor for the Academy. Our podcast series will use different formats to interview thought leaders from the world of allergy and immunology. This podcast is not intended to provide any individual medical advice to our listeners. We do hope that our conversations provide evidence-based information. Any questions pertaining to one's own health should always be discussed with their personal physician. The Find an Allergist search engine on the Academy website is a useful tool to locate a listing of board-certified allergists in your area. Finally, use of this audio program is subject to the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology Terms of Use Agreement, which you can find at www.AAAAI.org. Today's edition of our Conversations from the World of Allergy podcast series is targeted towards members of the Academy, specifically voting members, and we are very fortunate to have two guests for today's episode. We have both Dr. Stuart Abramson and Dr. Leonard Bacharier, who are both running for the position of Secretary-Treasurer within the Academy, which then ultimately ascends to the level of President. And the way that we're going to record this episode is we're going to have each of our guests actually didn't know that they were running against each other until very recently, so they recorded their answers separately. And what you'll hear Dr. Abramson's answers first, and then Dr. Bacharier answers second to each of the questions that I provide, so that you can listen to the way that they answer each of those questions. And we hope that you find this a very meaningful conversation as you get to know both of our wonderful candidates for Secretary-Treasurer, and you consider this when you please vote in the upcoming election. Thank you for listening. Dr. Abramson, many in our audience know the names of the leaders in our specialty, but don't always get to know them personally, which is what we love to do on our podcast. Can we start by having you tell us about your background? Feel free to discuss where you grew up, why you decided to become an allergist immunologist, and really take us through where you are in your career at this time.
Thank you very much, Dave, for having me on this podcast for our American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology community. I was born in a small town in western Pennsylvania called Uniontown, but grew up most of my childhood outside of Washington, D.C. in Silver Spring, Maryland. I became interested in allergy and being a physician in elementary school there, and having allergies myself was under the care of a well-known allergist named Gilbert Barkin, who later became president of the American College of Allergy and Immunology. I did receive allergy shots and became adequately desensitized, which was very good. My college years were at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, only 35 miles up the road, far enough away from home, but convenient enough to go back and visit my family periodically. I had worked on science projects at the National Institutes of Health at college and with a Howard Hughes investigator with whom I co-authored my first scientific paper, which involved injecting rats and mice in their tails with a dextran-modified enzyme to extend, several enzymes to extend their half-life and potentially treat diseases. Although this was interesting, I did decide after that I didn't want to work with rodents, but with people. So I then moved to Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas, which was my first choice, but my friends said, "Why do you want to go to Texas?" Well, I had a first cousin who was practicing internal medicine in Houston, and still is at age 87, who told me I should take a look at Baylor, and I truly loved the people, the atmosphere, and the facilities. I received a scholarship for the new NIH Medical Scientist Training Program, year one at Baylor, and became the first graduate of this program, which has trained over 300 physician scientists since then. My choice of PhD mentor came when I was in the basic science program taking immunology, and I was truly enthralled by the lectures and particularly the deep, powerful voice of one Dr. Robert Rich, whose teaching skill and knowledge was really unsurpassed in my basic science experience and beyond. And he became an outstanding leader in immunology. The focus of my work there was antigen presentation requirements for human T cells. Then I decided to stay on for residency in pediatrics, led by another giant in his field, Dr. Ralph Feigen, an infectious disease specialist, followed by a 3-year allergy immunology fellowship at NIH with Dr. Michael Callender and further laboratory experience with Drs. John Gallen and Harry Malik in neutrophil biology. I was recruited to return to Baylor College of Medicine in 1990 by Dr. William Shearer, who was a member of my PhD dissertation committee and a well-known pediatric allergist immunologist at that time and beyond. and I served on the faculty for 21 years, involved in teaching, the training of over 75 allergy immunology fellows, clinical care, and research, mainly in the clinical areas of asthma and immunodeficiency, with a variety of grant funding, including an NIH R18 Principal Investigator Award. But that said, patient care has always been near and dear to my heart, and I served as head of the Ben Taub Pediatric Allergy Immunology Clinic, the main hospital district clinic for poor and needy patients in Houston, for 21 years until it was closed by a new pediatric department chairman because of the increased costs to continue its operation along with other pediatric specialty clinics there. So in a change of venue for the past 13 years, I've served as Director of Allergy Immunology Services at Shannon Clinic and Medical Center in San Angelo, Texas, a town of about 100,000 in west central Texas, and have a busy full-time practice with a large multi-specialty clinic and an excellent physician partner. I was recruited here in 2011 by Dr. Ernie Charlesworth, who I had known for a number of years, and he was double-boarded in allergy immunology and dermatology, and was looking to first retire from allergy immunology. I've been very happy with this transition from full-time academia to full-time practice, and have continued with teaching and lifelong learning as touch points in my career. I currently have an appointment as a clinical professor for Texas A&M University College of Medicine, based on our clinical affiliation and teaching in which I am participating. Thank you.
Dr. Bacharier, many in our audience know the names of the leaders in our specialty, but don't always get to know them personally, which is what we love to do on our podcast. Can we start by having you tell us about your background? Feel free to discuss where you grew up, why you decided to become an allergist immunologist, and take us through where you are in your career this time.
Sure. So I'm a product of Long Island, New York. Grew up on the South Shore of Long Island. For undergraduate work, I went to Baltimore and Johns Hopkins, got a degree in biophysics, which I think set me up for a strong science-based medical education. I then went to Washington University in St. Louis for the first time, where I completed medical school and then did my residency in pediatrics at St. Louis Children's Hospital. Then moved to Boston for 3 years to do a fellowship at Boston Children's Hospital, and got a tremendous education and set of experiences that set me up for a productive career. At that point, I was recruited back to Washington University in St. Louis to begin my faculty career, and there I stayed for 22 years and did a lot of work around the space of childhood asthma. From there, during the pandemic, we relocated to Nashville and Vanderbilt University Medical Center, where we've been ever since. I've always been fascinated in the immune system. It started with an immunology course as an undergraduate, and then once I saw the immune system in action during medical school and residency, it became clear to me that this was the centerpiece of what drove so much disease. And when you combine that with common problems such as allergic rhinitis, food allergy, and asthma, it seemed like a great opportunity to spend a career learning more and trying to advance a field that would impact countless patients and countless lives. So I'm currently a professor of pediatrics at Vanderbilt, where I direct our Center on Pediatric Asthma, and have really enjoyed that latest move in my career.
Dr. Abramson, let's say that for whatever reason you are no longer able to be a physician. What other career path would you choose?
If I were not able to be a physician delivering patient care, I would like to be involved with a career that would be able to have a positive impact on the quality and quantity of patient care delivered and addressing specific health issues. So to me, that would include a position as a leader and consultant for some area of government, preferably state or federal, or with a large foundation that is well funded, for example, the Gates Foundation. This could lead to substantial impact based on smart allocation of financial resources and organizational resources with personnel and community tie-ins in order to reach those most in need to promote better quality of life. To address healthcare policy concerns in our country, I would start by delineating how our environmental exposures, our food, water, and other drink, lifestyle, behavior, and education can affect our health and help how to improve our health. So, in particular, I've been involved with environmental health issues for a large part of my career, including working with the American Lung Association, serving on a task force appointed by Houston's Mayor White around 2006 that wrote a white paper on identifying priority health risks from air pollution in Houston. And I've co-authored several other publications in this area and served as a program director for several CME programs. Most recently, I've served on the steering committee for the Medical Society Consortium on Climate and Health, representing the Quad AI. With this background, I feel well prepared to do this type of work and would actually welcome that opportunity. I think more outreach to children in schools would also be an area of focus for the pediatrician in me, where I'm no longer able to serve as one.
Dr. Bacharier, let's say that for whatever reason you are no longer able to be a physician. What other career path would you choose?
That's a fascinating question. I think the answers I would give are pretty unrelated to being a physician. I'm pathologically addicted to golf, and if I had the time and skill set, that would be a nice opportunity. I'm a huge fan of Formula One racing. That would be another great opportunity that I am certainly not physically capable of, but would be wonderful in the world where we're dreaming about other options.
Dr. Abramson, when did you serve on the board of directors for the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, and what was the most rewarding part of your experience?
So I served on the board of directors from 2020 to 2024, starting at the beginning with the onset of the COVID pandemic. This was quite challenging, but Zoom calls came to the rescue. The most rewarding part of this experience was serving with and getting to know individuals from across the country with diverse expertise and backgrounds, but all of us working together for the benefit of our specialty. A particularly rewarding work for me included serving as chair of the Practice and Policy Division for the Board of Directors for 2 years, and working on several presidential initiative task forces, which included for Dr. Maznayem, serving on the Community Practitioner Leadership Task Force, for Dr. Khan, serving as chair for the Prior Authorization Task Force, and for Dr. Bernstein, serving on the Voluntarism Addressing Environmental Disparities in Allergy Task Force.
Dr. Bacharier, when did you serve on the board of directors for the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, and what was the most rewarding part of your experience?
So I was fortunate to be elected as an at-large member to the board of directors and served a term from 2020 to 2024. So wrapped up my term earlier this year and really found that to be a wonderful professional and educational experience. In addition to getting to know all the members of the board and see their passion and talents for running this essential organization to our specialty, I really got to see a lot of the aspects of the Academy that I actually didn't really know existed. I had thought I had been very invested and very involved in the Academy at multiple levels, yet I showed up at my first board of directors meeting and heard about so many aspects of what the Academy was doing that I actually had been completely unaware of previously. So I really think it really brought my understanding of how active and broad the effects of the Academy are. They're much more than our annual meeting. They're much more than supporting fellows. They're much more than providing patient and practice support. They're more than advocacy and outreach. There's so much going on, and it just continued to amaze me how involved, invested, thoughtful, strategic all the members were in being good stewards of our resources, in helping foster and develop the next generation, to provide valuable education and materials to our current members. So it really showed me how much of an impact this organization really can and does have on so many groups of patients, not just its members.
Dr. Abramson, what do you think our specialty does really well, and where can we collectively improve?
I think that our specialty, via the Academy, does an excellent job with the Office of Education, providing broad-ranging programs at the annual meeting and supporting many educational efforts via the regional, state, and local allergy societies. I worked firsthand with staff liaison Steve Folstein for about 15 years before he left the Quad AI on what was originally called the CME Committee and more recently called the Continuing Certification and Professional Education Committee. So I've remained on that committee because it's something that I feel very strongly about working to help. I think that we can collectively improve our specialty by better outreach to legislators, administrators, and other physician specialties, including primary care, regarding what our specialty can uniquely and better offer patients in terms of diagnosis, education, and treatment. And this includes areas of cost effectiveness and quality. I think that we need to communicate these better.
Dr. Bacharier, what do you think our specialty does really well, and where can we collectively improve?
So we are a relatively small specialty, but we are one that I think routinely, as they say, punches above our weight. We're really good at doing a lot for our patients, our colleagues, advancing the science that underlies our field. I think it's pretty remarkable that with such a modest-sized group of individuals, we are able to make such broad impact in so many areas. Part of it has to do with the fact that we don't have a single organ that we take care of, that the effects of allergic and immunologic disease cross specialties, and all of our colleagues at some point along the way acknowledge and recognize that they need somebody in their team who can help unify and bring together the underlying immune basis of so many disorders. So I think, the size has always been a strength. It also leads to a very close-knit community, and, going to meetings like the annual meeting, it almost just feels like a big family reunion. We're all somehow connected to one another. It's pretty remarkable how many of us know so many people in that space. And I think, to me, that's one of the most enjoyable parts of those gatherings. Now, being small puts us at risk, right? Which is that there aren't as many training slots as we would ideally want. The field of allergy immunology is an aging workforce. We need to ensure that we have a really consistent pipeline of very well qualified candidates who can continue to grow and reinforce our field. This is becoming increasingly important because the prevalence and complexity of our disorders continue to increase. We talk about prevalent conditions now that didn't either exist or were not nearly as recognized as they are now. When I was a fellow, we maybe mentioned eosinophilic esophagitis as a rare possibility in some unusual presentation. And now we can't go a week in clinic without seeing one new diagnosis. We have a syndrome of delayed meat hypersensitivity that was previously unheard of and needs further identification there. So we've got evolving new conditions that we need to understand. We need to train a next generation and a generation after that of individuals who are scientifically skilled in understanding and delivering the increasingly complex care that we have. When I started, we didn't have a biologic. Now we have many, many that we have to be expert in. So I think it's about establishing and maintaining a strong and skilled and capable workforce that will allow us to meet the needs of our colleagues and our patients for generations to come.
Dr. Abramson, we often ask our guests to dust off their crystal balls and make some bold predictions. What is the greatest threat to our specialty of allergy and immunology, and can we overcome that in the next 10 years? If so, how?
I think one of the greatest threats over the next 10 years would include lack of adequate funding, the almighty dollar, for research, training programs, and delivery of care to those most in need of our specialty services. This includes our payment for services rendered relative to other specialties, as well as threats to cause changes to our practice and scope of practice allocation for services in our specialty. So this would include, for example, Medicare cuts and prior authorizations. This will require strong and persistent advocacy, which involves making connections with champions in the legislature and other government positions, as well as community leaders and our patients, who often have important stories to tell, in order to get the voice of our specialty heard and acted on in the best manner. This will be hard work, but I think we can do it, and I'm willing to contribute continued efforts in these areas.
Dr. Bacharier, we often ask our guests to dust off their crystal balls and make some bold predictions. What is the greatest threat to our specialty of allergy and immunology, and can we overcome that in the next 10 years? If so, how?
So I think that's not unrelated to our last discussion point. Since we do not have an organ system, since we are a largely non-procedural specialty, there are many situations in which other subspecialties have interest in and expertise in the care of these conditions. There are very few conditions that we care for that aren't also cared for by at least one other subspecialty, including upper airway disease, asthma, atopic dermatitis, eosinophilic esophagitis. We need to remain relevant and essential for our patients and our colleagues. And in order to do that, we really do need to continue to build strong organizations that support and encourage these activities, like the Academy. We need to continue to foster the maintenance and growth of training programs. We need to push the frontiers of research forward to develop better understanding, better diagnostics, and better therapeutics so that people will count on us as allergists, immunologists, as the source of effectively truth and knowledge in these space so that we remain essential to the greater and broader medical landscape. We need to continue to grow young investigators. We need to encourage the pursuit of basic science in our space, because with all of these, we continue to maintain our upfront and prominent position as physicians, as scientists, as patient advocates.
Dr. Abramson, you are running for the position of Secretary-Treasurer of the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, which ascends to the role of President of our organization. Why do you want to serve in these roles?
So one of the main ideas guiding me on a daily basis is, how can I make the world a better place? And I sincerely mean that. I would like to serve on the board of directors at this time as Secretary-Treasurer, leading up to President, because I feel that I have a lot to offer with my diverse background, expertise, and enthusiasm for our specialty. I am confident that I can make a difference for the better in our academy through leadership in building engagement and consensus with board of directors members, as well as the AAAAI Fellows and members at large. Several years ago, I participated in a board of directors exercise that labeled us with a color coded to a phenotype regarding our leadership characteristics. Mine was blue, which meant harmony, and that I was a good consensus builder based on being a good listener and engaging people in meetings. Those that know me have mentioned this to be true in my conduct of meetings, sometimes something I am proud to continually strive for in work groups. I have a strong background in educational activities, a few of which include the past annual meeting program committee chair, past member of the ACCME Accreditation Review Committee for 6 years, National Asthma Educator Certification Board Director for 6 years, and member of the Board of Directors for the AAAAI from 2010 to 2015. I also have extensive research background as well as clinical care experience that is somewhat unique when combined with education and teaching. I think all of this has given me a fuller appreciation for needs and actions necessary for the betterment of our specialty. Finally, the AAAAI has been my professional home for 35 years. I have not missed an annual meeting over this time period, and it has often been the highlight of the year for me, with the educational, operational, and the very enjoyable and meaningful social activities.
Dr. Bacharier, you are running for the position of Secretary-Treasurer of the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology, which ascends to the role of President of our organization. Why do you want to serve in these roles?
So the AAAAI has really been a very central component of my career since I was a fellow. When we came out of fellowship, a group of 3 of us acknowledged that there was very little directed pathway for young folks to get involved in the academy. And we banded together, had a series of discussions with academy leadership, and at that point formed what was then called the New Allergist Immunologist Committee. And since that time, this committee has grown and flourished. It's now an assembly, and these folks are doing remarkable things to enhance the academy and its impact, and giving them an inroad and a way to become involved. And that was essential to building my early career. And since then, I've served on numerous committees. I've had the opportunity to chair the ADT intersection. I was given the great opportunity to chair the annual meeting program committee, including that grand opportunity of shepherding it through the 2 COVID meetings, which taught me a lot about myself. It taught me a lot about the pandemic. It taught me a lot about sort of what people's perceptions were and how they were changing given the unique times. And then most recently, my time on the board of directors. I take these as an integral aspect of my career and my career development, and I really value them as amongst the most rewarding and valuable experiences I've had. I've gotten to meet, learn from many, many talented and passionate individuals, everybody who is focused on moving our field forward. I think it would be an honor of a career to serve as the president of this really prestigious and highly impactful organization that's really embodied by generous, energetic, talented individual members. I have a really strong commitment to the organization, a passionate love for the specialty, and I think that given the opportunity, this could help the Academy continue to flourish, continue to provide great value to its members, its stakeholders, and really, most importantly, the patients who rely heavily upon us for both expert and compassionate care.
Dr. Abramson, each AAAAI president brings their own interest to the role, which manifests as their presidential initiatives. Have you thought about what your initiatives might be if given the opportunity?
So I've thought about the opportunity for presidential initiatives, and advocacy has certainly been an important part of my activities within and outside of the AAAAI. In particular, over the past 5 years, where I have served as vice chair, and now past chair of the AAAAI Advocacy Committee. and for my community as president of the Contra Valley County Medical Society, representing 11 counties surrounding San Angelo, Texas. In clinical care, education, and research, advocacy is an area where we can make an impact at a variety of levels: local level, county, state, and national. All of these levels of advocacy in our specialty can make a difference for our patients, and I would like to address this in my initiative. Such efforts can affect how well we can deliver care, educate new specialists, and prepare for the future by bringing in new clinicians, educators, researchers, and combinations thereof to enable advances in our field via new research discoveries and their clinical implementation. I would like to see the AAAAI lead the way in training members for advocacy and mobilize our membership via engagement with lay groups, communities, or with academia based on members' individual interests to address some of the most pressing issues in these three areas in our specialty, which I'll say again: clinical care, education, and research. This seems like a very broad initiative, but the focus first is to train members in advocacy methods, then to subsequently home in on some of the specific pressing issues facing our field at the time, which can obviously change. Another area I would like to see addressed is augmenting the historical record for our society. We used to have a historian position in the leadership, and I think that this would be helpful again, so that we can recognize where we have been in various areas through oral and written histories, videos and photos, and can engage members to provide these accounts.
Dr. Bacharier, each AAAAI president brings their own interests to the role, which manifest as their presidential initiatives. Have you thought about what your initiatives might be if given the opportunity?
It would be wonderful to have the opportunity to put in place some approaches and initiatives that would be near and dear to both my heart and what I believe what our members and our patients need. So as you know, the focus of my career has been lessening the impact of asthma in children. And over the past 25 years, we've been really fortunate to see these fields move forward. We've had marked advancements in treatment options and marked expansion of the evidence basis for the management of asthma during childhood. Despite all that good work and all that good science and all those papers, we really see many children continuing to struggle with asthma. And these issues range from delays in diagnosis to access to essential medications. And, you know, this has been markedly highlighted this year by the removal of brand name fluticasone from the market. And this caused and continues to cause serious downstream consequences for caring for patients with asthma. It's a multi-pronged problem, but it really does underlie what my major initiative would be on the focus toward the advancement of pediatric asthma care. And I think we can do this in a variety of ways. Part of it is through improved dissemination of evidence-based guidelines. We could do this through special standalone meetings that bring in all relevant stakeholders. We could develop improved materials for patient education. We can continue to liaise with our pharmaceutical colleagues about issues such as the fluticasone, one that has really put many of us in a really unfortunate position and has had substantial downstream consequences on asthma care. So if I had to summarize the topic of greatest interest and concern to me would be one on improving the lives of children with asthma. And I think this is one way that I think we could begin to address that.
Dr. Abramson, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to convey anything else to our audience at this time. In the interest of fairness to both candidates, please limit your response to 1 minute or less.
Thank you, Dave. I'm very grateful to the nominating committee for considering me as one of two candidates to run for Secretary-Treasurer this year. The Academy is a leading voice not only in our country but around the world to promote education advance clinical treatments, and provide advocacy for clinical practice to thrive and meet the needs of our patients and members. I pledge my strongest commitment, should I be elected, to efforts to help engage legislators, administrators, academicians, and full-time practicing allergists and immunologists in working for the success of our mission, which I paraphrased in the comments I just made. I would like to also acknowledge my family for their love and support in my career, particularly during the long hours of work that every physician sometimes needs to devote outside of family. Thank you very much for this opportunity on the podcast.
Dr. Bacharier, I'd like to offer you the opportunity to convey anything else to our audience at this time. In the interest of fairness to both of our candidates, please limit your response to 1 minute or less.
So, in summary, I really think that I've loved my time in the space of allergy immunology and my involvement in the Academy. I think that the opportunity to lead this historic organization would be an honor of a lifetime. I believe that given my substantial contributions to our understanding and management of allergic disorders, my other involvements in the field, such as having chaired the American Board of Allergy, my role on the Science Committee for the Global Initiatives of Asthma and being the only American pediatrician there, has provided me with unique perspective to share and to lead. My active involvement in the Academy, including editorial boards of both Jackie and Jackie in Practice, strengthened my commitment to the science that we support, and my mentorship of dozens of fellows, having allowed them to go out and provide the care that they have and the science that they've advanced, have all combined to give me, I think, a wealth of experience in this space, and the ability to channel that to work with the great Academy staff, board members, stakeholders, and all the others would be an experience that I would give my full energy to and would very much look forward to embracing. So thanks for the real opportunity to share these thoughts with you today.
We hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode. Please visit www.AAAAI.org for show notes and any pertinent links from today's conversation. If you like the show, please take a moment to subscribe to our podcast through Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeartRadio, or Spotify so you can receive new episodes in the future. Thank you again for listening.